What's up, guys? Welcome back to the vlog. This is a rainy Wednesday night in March, and we are out here because the Nash brand new poker room is opening up in Nashua, New Hampshire. But out here for you guys on the opening night, trying to get some content, let you know how the room is and how the action is and all that good stuff, and see you guys later.
I mentioned this was opening night for the Nash, so this place is packed. We go through an absolute zoo to find the poker room, which is located downstairs in the back corner. The place is jumping, there's a bunch of tables running. You can sit down at one of their red and gold poker tables. I'll have a lot to say about the tables later, and a little bit to say possibly about the dealers as well, because this video is not only a vlog, but also a review of the brand new room. For now, we're gonna sit down at the 1-3 table in for $500, which is the max. I want to say to start that I like the bigger cap on the game. So I much prefer a 500 cap 1-3 game to a 300 cap 1-3. So I think that is definitely a positive thing to mention about the Nash's game. One negative though is that they've run out of red chips. So they had to give me green and black chips. Green chips I understand, but having black chips at the 1-3 game, especially when it's the lowest stake in the room, is a little bit awkward. People are looking at you crazily, and this is a brand new dealing staff, some of which are struggling to make change for the oversized chips. So that becomes a little bit awkward a little bit later. For now, let's jump into the hands. This is our first orbit. We're in middle position. This black disc in front of us is very awkward. For those of you who are confused, the Nash has a 3-card poker game that you can play against the casino. You do this by placing a $5 chip on this button before the hand, and then you can get paid multiples of your bet based on if the flop is a straight, a flush, or trips. This essentially takes money directly off the table that the players cannot win. I'll have a lot more to say about it later. But for now, we have pocket queens in MP. We're gonna raise it up to $10. Folds around to the button, who's gonna put in the call. The small blind completes as well, and the big blind makes this a 4-way affair. It's $40 in the middle, and we see a very interesting flop of Queen 8-4 with all spades, so we flop top set on a monotone board. The small blind looks like he's considering a donk lead. Eventually he checks. The big blind checks as well. I could definitely get on board with checking here, but we have top set. I don't think these players are very good, so I don't think they're going to be folding a hand like second pair or any sort of spade on this flop. So I decided to bet my hand small, $10 into 40, partially for value, partially for equity denial. The button is going to come along with the call, and the small blind confirms my suspicion when he busts out the check raise up to $35. I'm not in love with it, but I think the small blind could have a hand like Queen 8 suited or 8-4 suited, possibly even offsuit, or a hand containing the naked ace or king of spades. Also, his check raise is not very large at all. I think we're getting a good price to see the board pair on the turn, so I decided to stick in an extra green chip, and the button agrees with me that the price is reasonable when he calls as well. So the three of us are going to see a turn with now $145 in the pot. I'm going to try and be as fair to the dealers as I can, but everything here is just a little bit slow. I'm going to be chopping up these clips a lot more than I normally do for you guys. Back to the hand, we see the 3 of clubs on the turn. It doesn't change much about the board at all, and it's not going to change much about the small blind's bet sizing either, when he hits the copy and paste button for $35 on the turn once again. I don't think there's any point in raising, as I think only better will continue, and we're getting a more than reasonable price to see the board pair on the river. I decide to stick in the call once again, and the button now wakes up and moves all in. Now, while the small blind is thinking, I want you guys to look carefully, because the dealer is going to do something pretty interesting. He's going to pull in the $35 from each player and just announce the additional price that we need to call. Typically, when dealers do that, they will say something along the lines of, it's 75 more or 75 on top. Eventually, after a little bit of thinking, the small blind is going to fold. The dealer has announced the price is 97. I'm still unsure whether that's 97 more or 97 total. Once it's my turn, you can hear me try and confirm this with the dealer here.
97 more?
97 more.
I ask if it's 97 more. The dealer shakes his head and points to the stack in front of the button. I interpret this to mean 97 total. Now, while part of this is on me, I perhaps could have been paying more attention to how much the button had behind. However, it is sort of tricky, because if you rewind earlier in this clip, the button had his chips on the granite outline that surrounds the felt on these tables. That, in my opinion, causes some issues. We will talk about that at the end of the video. Some of you may be wondering why this is such a big deal. Well, the difference here is that if it's 97 total, that means we have to call $62 to win a pot that would be $375, which means we need around 17% equity, which with one card to come and 10 board pairing outs, assuming the button has a flush, which I think is very likely when the action goes like this, means that we will get there on the river around 1 in 5 times or 20%, meaning that we need to call a price that is below our break-even requirement. So we can actually make a slightly profitable call on the turn here. However, if it is 97 additional dollars, that means we have to call 97 to play a pot that would be $445, which means we require around 22% equity to make that a break-even call. And I just told you we have around 20% equity against a flush, which means that that 4% difference is the difference between making a winning call and a losing call. I might sound crazy to some of you, but if you know me personally, you know that I am trying to do this math in my head at the table. So it is important to get the numbers right. Again, part of this is on me. However, it must be said that the dealing staff was a little bit unclear here, in my opinion. Either way, I stick in the call. There's no going back now. The river is the 6 of spades, which means we absolutely never win here. The button shows us that he flopped the nuts with ace 10 of spades. So you can say we point to the $100 chip and ask for change here. I'm a little bit surprised when the dealer only gives me $3. There is a moment here where I'm having an interaction with him, asking where the rest of my change is. He then very nonchalantly brushes me off and ships the pot to the button pretty slowly. I will add here that all of the clips shown in this video of the dealing staff are going to be at 1x speed. I haven't sped them up or slowed them down, so this really is the pace at which they're moving. We get a little bit of a cooler here to start off down. This could have been avoided though if I were paying a little bit more attention or I got a little bit more clarity on the price. We're fresh off losing that hand with pocket queens, and you know what they say, the only way to get over a losing hand is to get into another one, so we're going to attempt to do that with ace queen of diamonds in middle position. We raised up to $10, the hijack is going to call, and the button is going to come along as well. So we're 3 ways out of position in a pot that's $30, and we see a pretty dusty jack 6-3 with 2 spades. Not even a diamond for a backdoor flush draw for us. We have 2 overcards to the board and a backdoor straight draw. 3 ways out of position, I'm going to start with a check. The hijack thinks checking is a good idea, and the button is a trend follower when he decides to check back as well. The turn pairs the 6 with the 6 of diamonds. I'd like to get our hand to showdown. I check for a second time, as does the hijack, and the button wants to see the river for free as well. When the river comes to 4 of clubs, I think our hand actually has quite a bit of showdown value, so I'm not going to choose to turn our hand into a bluff here. I check, and the hijack now decides to stab for $15. It's around half pot. I don't think the hijack is going to be cold calling with a lot of 3 or 4x. I also think a lot of his jack x holdings are going to stab the turn when check 2 twice, and there are countless hands he has to bluff with on this river, like king, queen, queen 10, king 10, 9, 8, 8, 7, just to name a few. So when the button folds, I decide to look him up, and the hijack shows us that he got tricky on the turn with 6-5 offsuit. Check back trips, wreck my world for $15. It's not really a big hand here, and I think it's kind of standard. Let me know what you guys think of the river call with ace high in the comments. Regardless, we have dropped our first 2 pots here at the Nash. After this hand, we get a seat change to the 7, the optimal vlogging seat, where we go a little bit card dead. We do pick up pocket 5s in the big blind and overcall and open, looking to flop a set. But unfortunately, none of the cards on the board match ours, so we have to fold on the turn before it's time for a $10 double board hold'em bomb pot. We have pocket 3s in the big blind. I know the dealer button is in front of us, but there's a red bomb pot button. The dealer probably should move the real button for this hand, but nevertheless, the top board comes out ace, ace, queen, so nothing doing there for us. But the bottom board is 5-3 deuce. We make middle set. It's not really fantastic because we have nothing on the other board, and I'm not really loving life when the small blind decides to lead out for $50. Honestly, when he bets this large, I think we could probably just fold. We're getting scooped by hands like ace 4 and pocket 5s, and not in that great of shape against a hand like queen x of spades. But I decide to put in the call. It might sound a little bit nitty, but again, if I could have this hand back, I would just muck the flop here. This is a super strong bet from the small blind, going full pot into 5 other players. As played, I call next to act, hoping to just go heads up with the small blind. But unfortunately for us, the hijack is going to foil that plan when he moves all in for $250. It pretty quickly folds back to the small blind, who snap reshoves for $500, covering us. Now, I'm 100% certain at least one of them has an ace. I think best case scenario, they both have aces and we're ahead on the bottom board. However, if they do have an ace, that is a gut shot on my board as well. So they're going to have plenty of equity to improve. Old JQ is definitely stacking off here. JQ on this night is able to eventually find the fold. I think this is a snap fold looking back, but hindsight is 20/20. And I think future JQ can hopefully just find a fold when the small blind comes out and pots it, especially given I have absolutely nothing on the top board. They, of course, are going to run both of the boards eventually. The top board is going to run out with a jack, the bottom board with a 6. So any 4, which was an open ender on the flop, would have beaten us now. The top river is a 7, and the bottom river is a 10 of spades. The front door flush draw completes. So basically nightmares for us on that board. The small blind has pocket queens, and the hijack player has ace 8 of hearts for the complete whale off. So we would have ended up taking half the pot, but I don't think we can be too results oriented here. And if I could go back, I would probably just save myself the $50. This next clip is going to come from 30 minutes later. We're involved in another double board bomb pot. It's going to check down to the river where I'm going to make 2 pair on one board. I bet small for value and get called in 3 spots. We're going to win half the pot, but I mostly put this clip in to show you guys how long it's taking the dealer to figure out who's going to get half the pots. I'm playing next to one of the floor men at Gate City Casino. I'm not sure if he wants me to use his name, so I'll keep his identity anonymous. But him and I are trying to be patient and help the dealer out as much as possible. Later on, one of the dealers would actually put the turn out before betting action on the flop had been finished. They were unsure what to do. They called the floor over. The floor said, and I quote, "I'm not really sure what to do here. It's my first day." So the floor, who was playing in the game from Gate City Casino, was able to chime in and help out a little bit. But needless to say, it's just sort of a madhouse here, kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And yeah, just look at how long it takes the dealer to chop this pot. This is a 2-way chop, by the way. So obviously it's opening night, want to cut the dealers a little bit of slack, but it seems like a lot of the staff probably just weren't ready for opening night in time. Which is probably a management issue, not getting enough people trained in time, and not the individual dealer's fault, but it does look pretty bad on the room as a whole. If you're keeping score at home, by the way, it takes the dealer 90 seconds to figure out who wins this pot and to chop up $100. I didn't do an exact count, but you're probably getting 15 hands per hour maximum here. This next hand is a very weird one. It's going to start with us in the big blind. The under the gun player is going to look down at his cards and decide to slide forward all but one of his chips, raising to $110. That's right, we're playing 1, 3, 110. The dealer asks the under the gun player if he'd like to go all in, and he says no. I've seen tournament players do this before, so I'm not sure what he's doing. He's a very nice guy, but it folds back to me. Praying we wake up with a good hand. We peel out pocket jacks and snap announce raise. We'll flick in some black chips covering him. He puts in the call. We show him that we have pocket jacks, and he shows us that we're up against the mallards, pocket deuces. Now maybe this is a bit of a nitpicky thing, and I'm just overall complaining too much. But we know the bet is $110. I've put 110 right in front of us. The guy is sitting directly next to me. Why does the dealer waste time dragging the pot all the way across the table? I'm not really sure. Either way, we have to fade some deuces and an over $200 pot. The flop comes out clean. It's 10, 9, 7. The turn is a 6. The river has some paint on it, so we're going to fell to the under the gun player. I take a second to say a little prayer to Brad Owen and get a shot for the thumbnail before the dealer struggles to ship over the pot that he moved far away for some reason. Honestly, everything about this night was super strange. But we're going to rake in our first outright one pot of the night. Feels pretty good. I feel myself getting a little bit tilted. We've had pretty good card distribution, but we're just not getting that many hands per hour. That's going to wrap up the session. We were in for $700, out for $545. With this being a new room, we're going to do a little bit of a different outro. So here's my full review of the Nash.
So I wanted to break this review down in sections. The first being the location. It's in Nashua, New Hampshire, about 10 minutes down the road from Gate City Casino. And in my opinion, there is no reason for another card room to be there. I think the player pool already isn't the deepest. So I think another competing room in the area just sort of thins out games. I would have much rather see a room opened up in central Massachusetts. And I don't know the New Hampshire geography very well, but Chasers is 25 minutes down the road as well. So I just don't see the need to have a third room right near those other two great rooms. Speaking directly about the poker room itself, I think it looked quite nice. It has this kind of McDonald's color scheme that I was a little bit nervous about going in, but I think they pulled it off quite well. It does kind of have a classy sort of feel about the room. It is a nice big, large room. It has a lot of tables, which is good. Also, to access the poker room, you have to go downstairs, so you do have to walk through all the casino. That could definitely be annoying, but I kind of like the size of the Nash overall. Kind of adds to the atmosphere. Speaking of atmosphere though, the poker room is located right next to the pits, so it is very, very loud in there. The cage is right outside the poker room, which is nice, but it is also, like I mentioned, next to the pits. So it was very busy. I was there on opening night, admittedly, so that might not be the best example. The room also had chip runners going when I was there, so that was a nice touch to be able to have someone just go and grab you chips instead of waiting in line at the cage. Moving on to their chips. They kind of feel cheap and plasticky, kind of low quality chips. I do like the way that they look. They just might not have the weight to them that other rooms might have. The cards also pretty flimsy. I do think the design on the cards is quite cool. I do think they look nice. The same can be said for the chips as well, just maybe a little bit lower quality. Some issues you run into with the cards and the chips, however, is that they blend directly into the table. If you go back and watch some hands, the red chips kind of blend in with the felt. It's hard to tell how much people have bet. And the golden cards blend in with the outer rim. So it's kind of hard to see if someone has cards still or not. The tables overall are awful, in my opinion. There is that marble strip, and the cup holders are built directly into that marble. So when dealers would pitch cards, not really their own fault a lot of times, cards would fall into those cup holders, exposing them. People can comment and say that it's different or whatnot, but in my experience, every 2 to 3 hands, there was at least one card exposed because of this. Again, not necessarily the dealer's fault, but just really poor design in my opinion. Also, some people would keep their chips on that marble, which kind of made it really hard to see like how much people were playing behind and whatnot. Also, a side note, when cards would get pitched onto the marble, it was kind of just hard to pick them up because there was a sizable lip between the felt and the lower marble, so that was also a little frustrating. The tables are 8-handed though, which I much prefer to 9, so that is a plus. But all of that plus is immediately wiped away and then some with those stupid, in my opinion, stupid progressive jackpot bets. $5 a hand if a fish does it for 20 hands an hour, which you're definitely not getting, by the way. But if the average live rate is 20 hands an hour, that's $100 off the table every hour. And if you're playing 1-3, some people only buy in for $100 or $200. So that's a lot of money coming off the table. Speaking of money coming off the table, the rake here is horrendous. One of the worst in the area. It's $7 cap plus $4 for promos. And the kicker for me, when I was there, they didn't have any high-end promos going. So taking $4 out of every pot, and it's not coming back to me, the player, in any capacity. So that's $11 per hand if your pot gets up to $50. And if you're playing in a good game that's splashy, most of the pots get that big. For reference, Gate City down the road is a cap $5 rake plus 3 for promos. And they actually have pretty decent promos as well. So $11 per hand and $8 per hand might not seem like a lot, but that $3 is a big difference if you compound it over a session. Also, side note, I went there on opening night. It's the first day, and the charge ports for your charger at the table were not working for any of the 4 seats around me. So while that might not be the biggest deal, obviously for me, I'm trying to vlog, plugging my phone in would be very useful. It's opening night. Like, how are things broken already? It's just not a good look. Another thing that isn't a good look is their floor and dealer staff. Now, admittedly, this could have gotten better, and I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt, but not only were cards exposed all over the place, some dealers didn't know which hand won at showdown sometimes. The pace at which the staff moved was very slow. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I've played in self-dealt home games that both move at a faster pace and are handled slightly more professionally than this one. In my opinion, a floor coming over to the table and not having a ruling, and then allowing one of the players at the table, even though they were a floor at a different location, to help make and decide that ruling is honestly unacceptable and really just shows a lack of professionalism in the room. Sure, I'll have some reviews popping up on your screen. I wanted to read a couple ones that stand out directly to you guys. These are off of Poker Atlas. The room has a 2 out of 5 star rating. Even the ratings that give it 4 out of 5 stars, they still have a lot of criticism. This first one is titled Avoid at All Cost. It says it's the highest rake in the country while offering nothing. This next one says no serious player would bother. They suggest to get real chips, get new tables without slippery marble edges below the felt, new color felt to make the chips and cards not blend in,
ditch the progressive game, move the room away from the loud craps tables, lower the rake, train the dealers and the staff better. Literally every other room in New England is better. Can't say I disagree. This next one says it's very disorganized. Whoever is managing the room must be new to this. Everyone seems confused. That was the general vibe I got. Again, guys, I played 1-3 there. I couldn't imagine going and sitting down at the 2-5 game that was running. And on opening night, they had a couple of 5-10 games running. I think a 25-25 PLO game might have gotten off when I was there. I couldn't imagine playing for tens of thousands of dollars and having incompetent staff muddle over the pot or make ridiculous floor rulings. Honestly, guys, I feel like I've been pretty harsh to the room here, and I wasn't going to say a lot of these things until I read this particular review from Slice, New Hampshire. If you guys know him, you know he's a regular in the area. He had this to say: "There are no words. I go to the Nash for the first time, sit at the 2-5 game, and the guy on my left wins a pot and proceeds to put the 7 of clubs in his pocket. The dealer not only doesn't call the floor, but doesn't count the deck. The automatic shufflers aren't being used. I and another player asked the dealer several times to count the deck, and he says he will next hand and never does. He also says this player can do whatever he wants. 20 minutes later, he wins a pot and puts the jack of diamonds in his pocket. We have to beg the dealer to count the deck before he finally does. Welcome to the Nash." If that's true, I think maybe bans for the player are in order, possibly some sort of punishment for the dealer as well. I mean, I've just never heard a room being so unprofessional and lackadaisical with stuff like this. And there are, at the time of making this video, 35 plus terrible reviews on Poker Atlas about this room. I haven't found anyone online that has a nice thing to say about it. If that story about a guy pocketing some of the cards and then proceeding to play for 20 plus minutes is true, then I can strongly say that no one should ever play here. Overall, I was honestly very disappointed with the room. I had high hopes for a new room opening up, but I think the conditions of the staff, the table orientation, the progressive jackpot, the ridiculous rake just make this room unplayable. Hopefully things will get better. I'd like to go back if things improve. They need to improve drastically, and I need to hear several people confirm that to me before I go back. I'm not going to tell you to play or not play anywhere, but for me personally, I can't see a valid reason why I would choose to play at the Nash over any of the other rooms in the area. Now again, this is only my opinion. You're entitled to have yours. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me. And if you have any horror stories or glory stories from the Nash as well. If you're a staff member of the Nash and you're watching this, sorry to go so hard on you guys, but hopefully it's going to inspire you guys to be better. All I want, and I think the poker community as a whole want, is a room that's good for the ecosystem. And I think as a whole, you guys are just being way too greedy right now with the ridiculous high rake and the progressive jackpot. Those are my honest thoughts and review. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you like this review format. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. The next few videos coming up are going to be from a trip I took to Austin, Texas. So those will be fun ones. You won't want to miss it. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you guys are staying up to date on those videos. Until next time, good luck at the tables, guys. Peace and love. And if you work at the Nash, be better.